Welcome to this video. I came across this astounding prophecy given by whom God called the fourth angel of the apocalypse to Marie Julie Jahenny. And this angel of the apocalypse is none other than one of the greatest saints of the church, St. Vincent Ferrer. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about him before we get into the prophecy given to Marie Julie Jahenny. He was a saint of the 14th and 15th century, and he has approximately 900 miracles associated with him that have been documented. And some of the miracles are the resurrection of the dead. He has exactly 28 resurrections that have been attributed to him. And he was of the Dominican order and one of the great missionaries and evangelists of his day or any day in the church. He traveled throughout Western Europe, from Italy, of course, and Spain and France, in England, Ireland, and Scotland, and he converted many. There was a caravan of people who would follow him from place to place as he would go on foot to preach in these different areas. And he had the power of speaking in a manner where his voice would carry a great deal of distance. And also his speech would be heard in any tongue that the listener is familiar with. So he was someone who spoke a dialect of Spanish, but anything he said while preaching could be heard in the native tongue of the listener. One of the interesting accounts is regarding him being referred to again by God as the fourth angel of the apocalypse. There was someone who scoffed at this, and St. Vincent Ferrer's response was, "Bring me someone who has died, and has died at least 4 days ago." And after 4 days, of course, you have the body in decay and rigor mortis setting in, and so forth. And that was done. He resurrected this person who had died 4 days ago, and immediately upon being resurrected, this person proclaimed that St. Vincent Ferrer was indeed the fourth angel of the apocalypse. It was the very first words that this resurrected person spoke. And he has many miracles that are not recorded. It was typical. The miraculous was typical for this person. It was ordinary. Going to the prophecy itself, and this was given to Marie Julie Jahenny on August 5th, 1878. And it's very remarkable. And when I stumbled upon it, I looked at that and I said, this is a prophecy that is very important, and most people do not know about it. There's a lack of familiarity regarding it. And you'll see why I think it's important as we go through it. So it's not very long, and I'm going to go through it. I'll probably make some comments as I do. So I'm going to begin here, and I quote, and again, this is St. Vincent Ferrer, an apparition of his to Marie Julie Jahenny in 1878. And I quote, "Souls today are much weaker than before. The faith of the pastors is not entirely pure, because their charity is not single. It is accompanied by a kind of evil called the plague of degradation. It is a lack of charity. It is a lack of respect we should all have for each other, since we are all children of the same Father and of the same Mother, the Blessed Virgin." And these were words spoken about priests in the day of Marie Julie Jahenny. But he goes on to speak more about the future. And this future I'm referring to is for our day. And again, I quote, I begin by saying a word. It is this. If the pastors and the souls entrusted with the painful responsibility of those souls created by God, if they do not change, they do not conform in perfect faith, if they do not conform in the charity ordained by God and order it especially with regards to themselves, God will soon make seen in and by them a subject of scandal. This is how God is preparing, in the great surprise of the inscrutable designs, God will send them by his divine power a serious warning that will be everywhere at once. So there's two things that are referred to here that are highly relevant to today. One is the actual mention of the scandal of the priests. And of course, we know what that scandal is today. Besides the loss of vacations, we have a great scandal that has plagued the priesthood just recently. And he warned, if the priesthood does not turn, do not conform itself to perfect faith, and do not change to conform itself in perfect charity, then this scandal would fall upon them. Then subsequently, he mentions the warning that it will be everywhere at once. And this warning, of course, is something that we see and wait for in our times. The illumination of conscience, the correction of conscience, the warning as described by many. I also like to point out the actual words of this person in this apparition. It's obviously the way that the words are constructed or sentences are constructed together. This is obviously speech from someone who's a great orator, very flowery language. And there's a little bit more here. And again, I quote, I pronounce this word, which is very terrible, because God calls me and God wills it. Here at the foot of the cross, I can affirm on behalf of God that God is 1,000 times more comforted by the many souls who have no dependence, who living in the world are not in the priesthood, but live well in their state. God is 1,000 times more comforted by this part than he is from many of his servants engaged in the painful paths of the direction of the souls on earth. And I speak of God's ministers. And here is what he's saying is that he's referring to ministers who do not perform their duties the way that they should. And I've seen this misinterpreted by someone else who was looking at this prophecy. When it refers to souls who have no dependence, he's referring to the laity. He's not referring to people who are single. He's referring to the laity because they have no souls that are dependent upon them like the priesthood does. And a little bit more here regarding this prophecy to Marie Julie Jahenny. Oh, how sweet are the ways of the cross when one has God as their Father and for support. What can we fear when we do the will of God and when we mind peace amid the waves of persecution and anguish? And this reference to doing the will of God is something that I think, of course, is very important. And again, this is very pertinent to our time. And the final sentence here, courage and perseverance. God will accomplish it. God lets pass this effort, this terrible effort, in a short time. His adorable voice will pronounce an end and give to those who have suffered the happiness of rejoicing and peace and in joy. This is my last word that I extend to the victims and to the faithful and devoted friends of Jesus. So he ends with a message of hope, saying these times that may be very serious that are in front of us will only last for a short period. And after that will come the adorable voice of God. The time of peace is, I believe, what he's referring to. So this is an excellent and very unknown prophecy that I think more people should know about. And it fits right in with other prophecies and Marian apparitions. And since I'm talking about St. Vincent Ferrer, there are two other prophecies that are not related to Marie Julie Jahenny that are attributed to him that I'd like to mention and also make others aware of. And the first one is this: Christians will become so lax in their religion that they will refuse to receive the sacrament of confirmation, saying that it is an unnecessary sacrament. Now, this also corresponds to a prophecy given by our Blessed Mother at Our Lady of Good Success of the Purification in Quito, Ecuador. And it's one that has come true, and I can attest to it, being a former catechist, where families would send their children to catechism, but usually after their communion, they would withdraw them and not have them stay for an additional 3 years for their confirmation. So this has become very true. And also I would say that not only is confirmation not being well attended, but also confession and the sacraments in general are being discarded. The other prophecy is this: by revelation, it is manifestly shown that the whole duration of the world rests on a certain conditional prolongation obtained by the Blessed Virgin in the hope of the conversion and the correction of the world. So this is something, again, that we see today, where there has been prophecies that have pointed to a certain time. And I'll give you a couple examples where we've had prophecies that pointed to the end of the 20th century by Father Gobi. It's a great example. Another one, I would say Fatima, pointed to the time of 1960, which we did have changes after that. But again, I think that if you look at the Fatima prophecies regarding the chastisements, I think that they have been prolonged, just like this prophecy says, as well as prophecies given at the one I just mentioned, Our Lady of Good Success of the Purification, which pointed to the second half of the 20th century. Now, a great deal has occurred in the second half of the 20th century, but we do not have all the prophetic events that have been mentioned coming to fruition then. It's obvious that there has been a postponement in some of these prophecies. And this prolongation that St. Vincent Ferrer mentions, it's one that has been obtained by our Blessed Virgin in the hope of the conversion and the correction of the world. So this is another one that is exactly for the times that we find ourselves in today. Well, I hope you found this interesting, and I'd like to say thank you for watching. I also like to thank everyone. I receive statistics on my channel, and I'm astounded by the number of people who share my videos. It's just very humbling and overwhelming. Thank you again, and God bless.